In a very surprising turn of events, George Charamba blames America for Kenyan riots. Are we surprised? We are not. We've always known Zanu PF to be so good at pointing fingers at other people, other things, or any other entity beside themselves. They would always want to find an excuse for everything that happens. When it comes to their own propaganda and, driving their own narratives, they would always want to blame what they want to be the one to blame. In this instance, it's very surprising why George Charamba would want to come and blame America for what has happened in Kenya. The riots that have happened in Kenya are as a result of what the government is planned to do, and the government has refused to listen to the demands of the people. And this has nothing to do with Ruto's visit to America or the relationship between America and Kenya. Many countries have always had issues and riots and fights and misunderstandings and different shovings and fights about many different issues in their countries. Is that everything to do with America? Why should America be the one to be blamed for everything that has to be happening? So you can see that there is an agenda of painting America black every time that Zanu PF want to speak. You still remember we spoke about the fallout that has happened between Mnangagwa and Ruto after Ruto left Zimbabwe and he went to the White House and he met the American president. Funny enough, what has happened was that Zanu PF did not take it lightly. Zanu PF still are finding or trying to find a place where they can revenge on Ruto for what he did. I'm sure what must be paining the most is the $1 million that is alleged to have been given to Ruto by Emerson Mnangagwa. In that briefcase, you still remember the briefcase, and I'm sure Wikinele has something to do with that because that is why he was lingering around. But all that we are saying here is that there is no need for Zanu PF to continue to grandstand and always want to create narratives that are not in place, that are not there. It doesn't work because at times you need to be just realistic and tell stories or talk about issues exactly as things have happened. Not sugarcoating things and putting salt and spicing up stories and making them to turn out to be your narrative. So in his tweet, and I'm so happy that at least now we have George Charamba coming out exactly with his name, so that when he misbehaves on Twitter, we can be able to, or rather the whole world can be able to know. We don't want to see all these Don Zamsoro, what, all those funny names that he gives himself, the Jukwas and the like. We want somebody who comes out in the clean and say what he wants to say out there. So George Charamba writes that Kenya is burning a few days after being confirmed as America's closest non-NATO ally. There is always a price to puppetry. For want is for armed. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know where and how this gets connected. And I'm sure it's all about just America. For the Zanu PF, people are always fighting anyone who befriends America. Anyone who befriends America is under attack. And yet they have their own friends, the Russians and the Chinese, especially the Chinese, with what they are doing in Zimbabwe, where they are devastating the environment of Zimbabwe. They are stealing resources of Zimbabwe. They are beating up and ill-treating Zimbabwean workers and underpaying Zimbabwean workers. They are shooting. You still remember we're talking about the Chinese who shot guys somewhere in Zombe area there. This is what they are doing. And they don't do anything. They don't promote anything. They don't build any infrastructure. They don't create employment. Chinese are just here to loot. And nobody is worried about it. Nobody is making noise about it. Zambia is not talking about it. Malawi is not talking about it. Kenya is not talking about it. South Africa is not talking about it. Botswana is not talking about it. It's the choice of friends that they've chosen for themselves. But nobody is interfering. But you always find Zanu PF being the big mouth, always being the ones that want to point at other countries and demanding. But just imagine the moment that happens to them, you hear them crying foul quickly, wanting to talk about sovereignty. We are a sovereign state. We are what? Don't interfere in our stories. Don't interfere in our issues. That's what they are quick to do. Zimbabwe, Zanu PF has been refusing SADC to intervene in these issues. People like George Charamba himself and Vananik Mangwana are the people that were coming out to say SADC has no right to intervene into issues that are pertaining to our country. We are a sovereign state and things like that, because it is somebody now who is talking about their own internal issues. But how many times is Zimbabwe interfering into internal issues? Or not, let me not even say Zimbabwe. Let me say Zanu PF and Mnangagwa. How many times have they been interfering into other nations and affairs of other nations? And when those other nations are not even retaliating, we find that those other nations are not even coming out as guns blazing as ZANU PF would do if the situation is reversed. So it's very, very amazing why George Charamba would just want to come and paint a certain narrative so that they can be able to drive home whatever that they want to a narrative that they want to set up. But it does not work. It is a big lie. What has happened in Kenya is happened in Kenya. It has to do with the administrators of the seat of the nation and their people. And their people have said they are not interested in that finance bill. And what they should have simply done was they should have simply listened to the masses. Or if they were not convinced that maybe everyone is not in agreement, why didn't they do a referendum? They should have done a referendum, and then everyone else would say out what they wanted to say, and then the country will go on instead of what has happened. Somebody might think that a referendum would be expensive. You can't have an election over such an issue. But how about the destruction that has happened in the country? All those buildings that have been burnt. And what about the ammunition that has been used by the police? How much money is that? It's much more than doing a referendum where people could have come and aid out their grievances. But I'm sure Ruto would be afraid to do any such a thing, because he still remembers that even the elections themselves, he won on a very, very slim margin. Remember that slim margin? It was the slimmest margin that you could ever have two presidential candidates ever having. So I'm sure he could be afraid of a referendum, because the possibility of him winning it would be next to zero, because even his winning up to now still remains very controversial, with quite a lot of disgruntlement and disagreements that happened even in the Electoral Commission itself. And let alone the people. Still remember the riots that wanted to start again soon after the announcement of the results of the election. So still it remains very, very cumbersome what really happened during the time of the elections in Kenya, whether this guy really won outrightly or there was some kind of chicanery that happened behind the scenes. So this is what it is. We are going to be touching the story of Ruto and what he has said and how he has bowed down to the pressure of the Kenyans in one of the shows we are going to do on the main channel. Otherwise, family, these are updates that I'm just giving you here and there. Continue to support the channel and subscribe, like, and share. We are going to be meeting. Now we are crossing over to the main channel for our live shows.